Welcome to Rooted with Rach, a space for honest conversations about motherhood, relationships, mental health, healing, and the journey of coming back home to ourselves. I'm Rachel, and I am so glad that you're here. Hey guys, welcome to the Rooted with Rach podcast. I am so happy to be here, and I am so happy to have you. This is my first official full-length podcast, and I thought, what better topic to get into than the most deepest, most vulnerable part of myself, and that is my anxiety, panic, agoraphobia, everything I've really gone through with that the last 7 years, really where I think it stemmed from and started before the real panic attacks began. I was not planning on filming this today with motherhood and all the things. Here we are. We're doing this kind of impromptu. I've been hoping to get this out sooner, but life happens, right? I mentioned in my last little intro that I had about my panic and anxiety that I've gone through. And it's really been this huge theme of my last 7 years of life. And it's something that I haven't shared with many people. It's something I've really suffered from silently for a long time. So part of sharing this now isn't just to share it with the world necessarily. Of course it is. I hope people feel seen in this. That's really the ultimate thing, is hoping that someone can feel seen and hopefully not suffer as long as I have. It's also a part of my healing journey to just finally share it because, like I said, I've kept this inside for so long. It feels like such relief and so powerful for me to share it and be okay with that. So let's dive into it. So about 7 years ago, I had started my first panic attacks. I mean, I had my first one and then it turned into this cycle that I continuously had. But let's actually go back into childhood because I think there are some pieces where my core beliefs played a role. And it's really kind of what started and planted the seed of anxiety to start with. So let's go back to honestly like my first memory. And my first memory was sitting at the dining room table with my mom and my brother. We're sitting at the table and it's Easter weekend. I'm 5 years old. And my mom is letting my brother and I know that my dad left. They were no longer going to be together. He had already left. He moved out and we'll see him again eventually, but they were no longer together. I didn't really know how to process that. I remember seeing my brother. He's just under 3 years older than me. And I could tell how he was upset. He obviously understood what that meant a lot more than I did. And I think seeing him upset really affected me, of course. So that's kind of where my first memory started. It's like this abandonment, this sadness. It's feeling other people's emotions around me. And then I had this other memory, and I'm in kindergarten, so the same age. The classes are set up where you don't go every day. It's like a class A, class B. And I remember my mom sending me. And we grew up in a small town, so we walked to school by ourselves at 5 years old. To me, that's wild. But that's how it was then. And my mom tells me I need to go to school. And I say, it's not my day to go. And she said, I think you're all going today. I'm like, I don't think so. So I remember walking to school, getting into the classroom, and all these people from the other class were there saying, what are you doing here? It's not your day. What are you doing? And then there's all of that embarrassment and shame that I'm feeling. And I'm so mad. I remember leaving, walking home, being so upset with my mom. Meanwhile, she's probably just honestly grieving her marriage and everything that was going on. And it was such a confusing time. But there's these core kind of memories that are creating these beliefs when we're so young. And mine starting with abandonment because 5 is such an important age. And my son's 5 now. And I think about this a lot when I'm parenting him, knowing how big the things I do right now can impact him and the things I say to him can impact him for the rest of his life. And so I'm looking at these core memories that's kind of shaping my beliefs about myself. this abandonment and this unworthiness, this I don't like being embarrassed, that feels uncomfortable, this shame. So then let's fast forward a little. So, talking to my mom these days, she lives with us actually, and we have a great relationship. She was fully prepared to never be with a guy again, or not for a long time. She didn't want to have like different guys in and out of her life, like relationships. She was fully prepared to like single mom it, right? Well, a few months after my dad had left, some old friends had invited us to this 4th of July barbecue. And they knew that someone in their family was going to be there that my mom had known forever and hadn't seen for years. And they were trying to set them up. Little did my mom know. We go to this barbecue, and there's clearly immediate chemistry with them. And really, from that day on, they were pretty inseparable. So it wasn't long between my dad leaving to this new man coming into the picture, who soon became my stepdad. I don't really know if I even knew how to process that at the time, but soon after, there would be more things for me to have to process. So he moves in and he has children from a prior marriage. We're now sharing a household with 3 other people. Have a stepbrother and stepsister that move in. And she's in the same class as me, the same age. And my stepbrother was just a little older than my brother, about a year. As you can imagine, just with relationships, marriages, kids that are used to being with their mom, living with us, and then we weren't really used to any of it. We were used to having our dad, and all of a sudden he's not there, and then this new man, and then these kids are coming in, and it was too much to process at that age. Things started getting difficult then. There were so many emotions. I remember wanting to be liked so much by them. I think I was scared of being left again. But there were so many new emotions and energies in our house, and it was a lot to take in. And I really quickly started learning how to observe others and read their emotions very quickly. My stepdad at the time, I'll just never forget. It was after they all moved in. I just remember when he would get home, there's this distinct memory in my head because it felt like it was on repeat day after day. He'd come in the back door, drop his lunch box, and just start yelling. And he wasn't yelling at any of us. However, he did yell at us a lot, but there was just so much yelling. It was so much anger from his work day. It was like he was yelling at the people he worked with. And I'm not saying this to throw shade on him. He clearly had a lot of emotions. And honestly, anger was how it came out for him. And I know that that stems from childhood, and I feel for that. I feel for him as a child because I know it was hard. But now I'm having to take in his unhealed childhood wounds and his unhealed dysregulated nervous system, which is then kind of setting my nervous system up for failure at this point. I think kind of everyone's in the household, to be honest. I really learned fast to walk on eggshells, try not to do anything to upset him or anyone else, and just not push any buttons. But I did at times because I was a kid. And the times that I did push those buttons, I got labeled as a spoiled brat, which in turn made me feel like when I show emotions, I'm a spoiled brat. I shouldn't show those. I shouldn't show being upset over something. I shouldn't cry over something. If that's going to label me a spoiled brat, then I started shoving all of my emotions and wants and needs inside, which translates a little bit further. I started getting bullied at school pretty bad. The bullying actually started in 3rd grade, and it didn't end until probably 8th grade. And I'm not going to say I'm completely innocent in it. It was this case of where there was one girl who was kind of like the rule leader. You'd go to school one day, And if she was on your side, you were okay. You were part of the cool kid group and you might be mean to other people. If she wasn't on your side that day when you get to school, everyone hated you. So if you can imagine how anxious you feel, because this is a small school, you can't get away from these people. So you're walking to school and you're unsure, is today the day everyone's going to hate me? Or is today the day that this mean girl is going to be my friend, which means everyone else in this little group that she chooses is going to be our friend, is going to be nice to me. And I hate that because when I was liked that day, that meant I wasn't very nice to the person that she chose to not like. And this was a theme. It really kind of started in third grade, was probably at its worst in fifth and sixth. Seventh was still bad. Eighth, I finally was over it. But there was this anxiety every day about it. And here comes the people pleasing, right? I was already learning at home to start holding things in because I felt like I was too much. If I showed what I was feeling, I was a spoiled brat. So, and my mom never called me that. I think she was in her own world at this point. She had so many high hopes for what it was going to be with all the splendid family. She thought we'd all be best friends. They were in over their heads at that point. I know she had a hard time parenting when he came into the picture because there were just different rules for different kids and it was tough. I learned quickly to start keeping it all in. And then all of this happening at school, I was keeping all of that in as well. With the whole bullying aspect too, where there'd be times I would be mean to others, it really came down to survival at this point. It's like if that's what it takes for me to go to school and not feel like everyone's going to hate me, I guess that's what it takes, which is awful. It's so terrible. And it makes me feel awful for everyone I ever said something mean to. I know it usually turned around and came right back to me the next day, but it was day after day going to school feeling this. There was not a day I didn't go to school worried if people were going to hate me or not. There was this time in particular, actually, that I was sick. And this girl down the street told my teacher in fifth grade that she was going to bring me my homework for me. Well, turns out that was the day everyone hated me. So who did not bring me my homework? Her. When I got to school, who got in trouble? Me. And I found that homework just thrown about in this like little closet we had in the classroom. So it was very clear that she intentionally left it there and had no intention of giving it to me. And that was just a small piece to how it was every single day. In the grand scheme of all of this childhood, this abandonment to start with, I started creating all these core beliefs. So we already talked about the abandonment and then the embarrassment, right? I hated the embarrassment of showing up on the wrong day. But then we get called the spoiled brat. So there's these emotions that I'm feeling like I'm not supposed to show. And then there's this person I'm feeling like I have to be because if I don't want to upset certain people in the household and then certain people at school, I'm abandoning myself. I left myself at a young age. I said, you know what? You're too much. You're a spoiled brat. You get bullied. In comes this person who doesn't know who she is. She'll be whoever she needs to be to get through the day. She'll people please whoever. She'll say what she needs to say. That's what keeps her safe. Truth didn't keep her safe. In fact, when she spoke the truth, she got in trouble. So that proved to her that she just had to be whoever she needed to be around whoever she needed to be it. So that's what happened. I remember I started lying a lot at a young age. I just did whatever I needed to do. The people pleasing was off the chart. I was trying to be anything other than who I was because that clearly wasn't working. And honestly, thinking about that makes me so sad because when I look at that little girl, she held on to so much. And that really did go into adulthood for me. But I remember going several years at a young age without crying. several years without crying. That honestly makes me want to cry even thinking about that. I think I forgot how to feel at a certain point. I didn't want the label of being something that was bad. I only wanted to be known for things that were good. You want to be a good girl. So I did everything I needed to look that way. And of course, growing up in a small town, there's these reputations. Everyone knows everyone. You have to be really careful about who you're surrounded with, what you say, what you do, what places in the town you're sitting. It was bad to sit in front of the library. I didn't know that. Apparently the bad kids did that. So I wasn't supposed to sit in front of the library outside of on Main Street. As you can see, there's a lot about what other people think. And they have to think something good. You have to be this way to be accepted. That's a lot for a kid. So thankfully, I finally got out of that. I remember standing up to my bully in 8th grade. Walking down the street, I was leaving some sporting event and I'm just screaming at her. I think I'm telling her I hate her and just to leave me alone. I was finally over it. I put up with it for so many years. I wasn't going to do it anymore. I didn't need her to be my friend. I think I finally learned that, like, you know what, if this is what it takes, we don't need to be friends. I don't want to be your friend. I hate you. Leave me alone. And it worked. In fact, she did not go on to be in high school there. Going into high school, I'm still this person that doesn't know who she is, still cares way too much of what people think of me, really needs to people please, really needs people to think of me a certain way. Not as much as I did. I think there was a short time in high school where felt a lot more free. But we're going to fast forward now. I just wanted to give you just a look, like a glimpse of what it was like, because these panic attacks and these things that come up in our future, they don't come out of nowhere. We're looking at a girl that was in fight or flight for so much of her life. We're looking at a little girl that had a dysregulated nervous system at a very young age. Looking at a little girl that has these core beliefs of herself. Not many of them positive. Those are hardcore beliefs too to change as you get older. We can change our core beliefs that we create, and just because they're core beliefs does not mean they're true. And I've learned this later in life that we can change these things. And I just started changing these things in the last few years. They've been with me for a long time. I'm 32 right now. We're going to go to when my first panic attack happened. What happened after that? So I'm 26 at this time. There was a lot of life lived between there. But with this episode in particular, I know we're talking about anxiety, so I'm going to try to stay on track with this. I'm 26. I'm working at a hair salon. There's a few other girls there. They're great. I mean, I've worked with them for a long time. They're wonderful people. I'm working on a client that I've had for a while, and at this time of being 26, I had recently been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is a inflammatory bowel disease. It's about as glamorous as it sounds and about as shitty as it sounds, and the pun is absolutely intended. It was so not fun, and it's gotten a lot better, but at the time it was not fun to be diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I think it was at 25 I was diagnosed. With that, there's discomfort in your gut often. There's, urgency to go use the restroom. There's a lot that goes into it. And for me, urgency was a big one. It wasn't really something I had dealt with at work until this point, though. So I'm blow drying a client's hair and I feel that feeling in my stomach. I'm like, oh, man, okay, this sucks. I'm going to have to excuse myself from my client, go to the bathroom. When I say it now, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. But let me remind you, I'm only 26 at this time, and I haven't really gotten through those core beliefs yet. I haven't changed any of them at this point. So actually the thought of just excusing myself from my client was embarrassing to me. But I knew I had to excuse myself. It just felt weird to just leave her mid blow dry. So I'm kind of making this game plan in my head. Okay, I'm going to have to leave this client real quick soon because I need to go to the bathroom. So while I'm just about to excuse myself, I hear the bathroom door close. The only bathroom there. And I'm instantly panicking. I remember shaking, my chest felt tight, I'm sweaty, I can't think straight, and I didn't know what to do. So I'm just thinking, what am I going to do? What if I don't make it to the bathroom? I have a client, I'm in the small salon, like, where do I go? I felt trapped. So I'm having this panic attack internally. No one around me knows, but I'm freaking out. So I excuse myself from her regardless because I'm like, well, this is going to happen. It's not going to happen right in front of her. And I'm kind of panicking in the back area where we mix our color. Again, no one knows. No one knows I'm going through this right now. Everyone's with their clients or whatever. And my client, I don't know what she's thinking. And luckily I made it to the bathroom. Thank God. But something like that, you would think, okay, the worst case scenario did not happen, thankfully. So let's just move on. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. That panic attack triggered this anxiety loop that would follow me for years after. And I had no idea. I felt so embarrassed for something that didn't even end up happening, but it was almost as if it did. I of course got back to her. I finished her hair appointment and I went home and I did not feel relief in any sense of the word. And the next day, my body starts feeling this anxiety before I even could leave for work. It very quickly became a struggle to even leave the house, to even go to work, to even go anywhere, to be honest. So my body told my mind I was no longer safe there, right? So in my subconscious, we're starting to vet things out like, okay, you could be trapped there, not safe. Oh, driving long distances, not really safe. Leaving your house, not very safe. There were a lot of things that no longer felt safe. So it'd be a struggle to get to work. I'd put on some like frequency music, some like meditations. I did whatever I could. It was a struggle. It wasn't long after that, though, that the world shut down because of COVID. And I'll be honest, I remember feeling relief. It's like, okay, now I can't go to work. Now I get to stay home where I'm safe. And that is so sad when I look back to that because I really did. Home felt like the only place I could be where I wouldn't panic at that point. The world shut down, salon shut down. I tried to start going on these walks and I would go with my husband. And I remember more than once walking, stopping in front of the neighbor's house that was right next door and turning back around. It was like my stomach would instantly start hurting. And I was like, babe, I can't do this. I need to go home right now. There was a lot of like constantly trying to get this exposure therapy, right? And I just did it nonstop and nonstop. And sometimes it would be fine and I could go on walks. And sometimes I am jetting back home as quickly as possible. But work became hard. When it opened back up, like everything became hard. During that time, I got pregnant with my son. And then I had these doctor's appointments, right? Doctor's appointments became really hard because it's this thought and feeling of being trapped in this room, right? While you're waiting for the doctor. What if I panic? What if I need to use the restroom because I panic? It was this endless cycle and it continued. It really did for years. And I stopped doing things that I wanted to. I remember friends would say something about like going on a walk and like, oh, I'm not going on a walk. But they didn't know why. Or, going boating with friends, that sounded like a nightmare. There were so many things to go do with friends that sounded awful to me. And the only reason it sounded awful was because I was fearful I'd panic and then I would be trapped and then I would be embarrassed. Again, back to those old feelings I had as a kid, the unworthiness, the feel of embarrassment, keeping everything inside. This is what you're seeing me do then at this point, going through this panic. It's like I feel like I need to keep it inside. No one at the salon knew I had the panic attack. I continued to keep it inside. I wonder now if I would have just been honest with more people about it, maybe the fear of worst case scenario wouldn't have been so bad. If I just told people, like, hey, this is what I go through sometimes, this is what I've been suffering from, and it sucks, but this is just kind of a part of what's happening right now. And no, I couldn't do that. The embarrassment, the feel of, I didn't want to be too much for people. I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to be small. I wanted to blend in. I didn't want to stand out. So much different than I think who I was supposed to be. Because as a little girl, there was a brief time my cousin reminded me that I used to put on these concerts, these Britney Spears concerts where I was a performer and they needed to sit and watch me. And I wanted to be a star. I wanted to be seen. And so quickly that changed for me, where I didn't want anyone to look at me. I didn't want anyone to notice me. Daily life was hard for a long time. And it's hard to suffer silently. It's even harder to try to explain it to people and them not understand, but I didn't even give people a chance. Of course, I let my husband in on things, and I could sense his frustration at times if we're trying to get out the door and I'm just running back to the bathroom. And I imagine that would be tough. And I don't think he quite understood. There's no way he could have, right? There's so much going on in your mind, in your body that you can't control, or it feels like you can't control. And no one around you can possibly imagine what that feels like unless they've gone through it themselves. But even if they've gone through something like it themselves, no one quite knows what it's like to be in your body. And I just really, as vulnerable as all of this is, and I cannot believe I'm sharing this with everyone, because there was a time that, like I said, I wanted to blend in, right? I think it's important to just be us and share our truth and be authentic and to not fear so much what other people think. But I'd gone so much of my life doing so that it felt like it was part of my identity. To just do the things to make everyone around me comfortable while making myself uncomfortable. That's what I trained myself to do. That was my dysregulated nervous system. That was my people pleaser. That was my fear of abandonment, my fear of people leaving me if I was too much. That's why so much of childhood and anxiety and panic later in life go hand in hand, because those core beliefs that we create stick with us if we don't decide that that belief is no longer the truth. I would like to say I have this perfect solution that worked for me and I was just never felt anxiety again. And that's just not the case. I tried a lot of things. When the world shut down, I did try therapy, and I didn't have the right therapist at first and it didn't really go that well. I later got on an SSRI, Lexapro, and honestly, at first, I thought this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. Very quickly after, I realized it was no longer working. Later, after working with a functional medicine doctor, I learned that if I ever wanted to get off this SSRI, I needed to be very careful and I needed to wean slowly. I had no idea. There were days that I would miss a dose of this and I would feel like I had the flu. I had no clue that's why. I just thought I was getting sick. I never correlated it to one another. My doctor that prescribed it to me initially never told me that I would need to wean off of it slowly if I ever wanted to get off. I tried getting off of it multiple times and I felt terrible. The withdrawals were so bad. I felt awful. My anxiety felt worse, not because it had gotten better with it, but because getting off of it made it worse. The withdrawals made it worse. I felt so sick. It was terrible. And look, I'm not trying to say don't get on medication. We all need to do what we intuitively feel like is best for us, and no one can tell us what that is. We deep down know what it is, I think. I knew that wasn't it, but I continued to stay on it for much longer because the withdrawals were too hard for me. But when they say that sometimes when people are on these medications, they're not really themselves or they're like a zombie, I don't think I was too bad off, but I don't think I was fully myself either. I don't think I was having an easy time following my intuition at that time, or really feeling my feelings fully. And I think that might be part of the purpose of it, but I wanted to be myself. There were a lot of setbacks, right? There were a lot of things I tried and I thought they worked and then they didn't. There would be times where things felt like it was going good. There was a lot of exposure therapy, just forcing myself to do things and hoping for the best. And that worked some. Then I would say, okay, I went to Target and I felt okay. I can go there again. I'll be fine. With these efforts and feeling better, then it was like I would have a panic attack and then it would almost like just set me back even further. Then we're fast forwarding to June of 2022 and then my best friend passed away from suicide. Here I am sitting on my floor with my 1.5-year-old son. I'm going to have a whole episode dedicated to Taylor because she deserves an episode and more. But in this moment, I just remember sitting there. My husband's at work. Her mom calls me, and I'm sitting there. And I mean, really, I was in such disbelief, but I became a shell of myself after that for a long time. And if it wasn't for my husband and my son, I don't know where I would be. I don't know. I would not be here. Not here. I would be somewhere, maybe. I have no idea where I would be and what mental capacity I would be at. Because of them, though, I did everything I could to get out of that dark space that I was in after losing her. There was a lot of numbness. I was still on my medication. And then there was a lot of grief, and there still is every single day. This was a big setback, of course, in my mental health. How could it not be? It was then that I thought, you know what? I need to really actually go seek a therapist. Like, I need to find a good one. And I found one. And she was amazing. She was everything the first one wasn't for me. And she is actually the one that really helped me look at my core beliefs. She was the one that helped me look at my childhood and understand where it correlated with my anxiety. She was amazing. We've moved since to Florida from Washington. Otherwise I'd probably still see her every now and then, but there's so many things that she would say in sessions to me that I'm just now starting to finally implement and understand for myself. I became pregnant with my daughter, and this was in 2024. And I started weaning off the SSRIs, and I was able to wean off them. And I feel like my daughter, it's because of her. She's a year and a half now, and she is so strong willed. And I know she helped me get off them. I have my son, and then I'm pregnant with my daughter. My kids have healed me in so many ways. And it's because of them that I dive in so deep into the whys and want to change so badly because I want to be my best self for them because I don't ever want them to go through this. And if they do, I want to help them navigate it in a way where they don't have to deal with it for as long as I did. So motherhood obviously gave me this motivation, and it still does every single day. But I knew, especially with the daughter, it just put things in perspective. It made me think of little Rachel, and it made me think, okay, this girl, I need to show her what it's like to fully show up as myself, to be seen, to take up space, to be okay with it, to live authentically. And that is exactly what I'm learning to do now. And what do you know? It has helped my anxiety more than anything. To show up for yourself, to be seen for exactly who you are, to stop people pleasing, to like really love yourself and accept yourself for who you actually are, to give like your little self a hug, the one that really needed one, to let them know that they're going to be okay. Say, let's walk through this life together, okay? Like, I got you now. I'm sorry I abandoned you so long ago. When you fully love yourself and you give yourself grace and you truly show up for who you are, you give yourself the chance to be authentic, to do things that feel good for you and don't do things that feel bad. That's freedom. And that will free you from your anxiety too. Replacing those old core beliefs and not believing them anymore. We don't need those anymore. They were survival before, but they're not now. They're hurting us now. Those core beliefs aren't doing us any favors anymore. And for my children, I want them to show up powerfully, authentically, be themselves. Don't shrink for others. Don't shrink because you think you need to. And I say this to all of you too. You are so perfect the way that you are. And you may not believe it, but I hope one day you will. My journey with anxiety, I have anxiety still that shows up here and there. It's nothing like it was. And since moving to Florida this last August, I've been given the peace and the space to really work on myself. I started over in my career as a hairstylist here, and it's been a lot slower. And at first, I was so frustrated by that. And then I thought, this is a gift, not only to be here with my children, to help our whole family settle in and thrive in Florida, but it's a gift to myself to give me some space, some love, some grace, to slow down, stop rushing, help regulate my nervous system, dive into things that make me feel alive. Start this podcast. It's been a gift to be able to be here and heal. And I just want you to know that your journey with anxiety or panic or agoraphobia, it doesn't have to last forever. And it doesn't have to last as long as mine did either. I used to think that freedom meant a life without anxiety. But the truth is, it's living a life where anxiety can still show up, but you don't let fear win. You keep living your life. You don't let it stop you walking out that door. And you say, okay, if you're going to show up today, I'm going to show you that I'm safe. I'm going to still do the thing and I'm going to survive and I'm going to let you know I'm okay. I'm okay to do these things. I'm okay to live my life. Combine that with just being yourself, speaking your truth, living authentically. And I promise you, there is a whole other life on the other side that is waiting for you that is so much brighter than the one that you've been dealing with. And if you've struggled with any of this, I see you. I do, and I hold so much space and love for you. It may feel like you'll never get out, and I promise you will. You will because you know you will. You have that deep knowing that there's so much more for me in this life, and this cannot be it, and it won't be. You just have to keep going. Follow your heart, follow your truth, follow your gut. Have faith in yourself. Believe in yourself. Stop doubting her. Stop pushing her away. Thank you guys for being here, listening to this. This is the most vulnerable I've ever been to the world in my life. And I just want to thank you for listening. And I just want you to know that I'm so grateful that you're here. I'll see you next time.